LinkedIn fam? I am Tegan Bartos, and I am so excited to bring you another powerhouse conversation on this LinkedIn Live series designed to help you rise in your career and land roles that you actually love. Today, we are diving into a topic that I haven't had the strongest pulse on this year, and that is, what does it really take to land a job in the UK in 2025. I personally am located just outside of Chicago, Illinois, and no longer am in close of ties with doing business in the UK. So I'm really excited to bring my special guest, Executive Director of UK Job Insider, career coach, award-winning researcher, and top public voice LinkedIn top voice. There we go. In affairs. So without any further ado, welcome, Vardaan. Thank you so much for joining me today. So you have helped thousands, hundreds, lots of job seekers from around the world break in to the UK job market. And I can't tell you how many people will DM me and will say, hey, I'm trying to get a job into the UK, but things are going crazy. And so when we connected, I was like, all right, let me get the insider scoop, because then I can just forward this video to people who ask, because I don't know. So today, can you pull back the curtain on what's really working, what's not, and what the heck is going on?
Absolutely. First, Tegan, thank you so much for having me here. I think the way you've organized it, I think it's one of the most smoothest organizations I've ever seen across any talk. So hats off for that. And definitely, thanks for the warm introduction. We've definitely done a lot of work around the UK market. It would be very interesting to share all the sort of, shortcomings and what are the sort of, common pitfalls and where are there, sort of those gaps, and sort of get into the meaty chunk of it.
I've got my notepad ready. I'm ready. All right. Okay. I'm a nerd. I love jotting down things. And for those of you who are a subscriber to my email list, I do like a fun little recap. I'll drop your links and all that kind of stuff. So that way I can keep it all organized. But all right, well, let's kick things off. I mean, you've helped so many people in the UK. So what's something that job seekers think they need to focus on, but doesn't actually move the needle in the 2025 job search?
I love this question. I think it's probably one of the best questions to start with, because there are two answers to it, right?
Okay.
I think the first one is going to come across as very, very different and sort of unexpected. I think the first bit is applying to jobs. I think that's where, so people come in, and the first thing they think is, all right, I will get a job by applying to jobs, which is potentially right. It's the right way to do it. But that's not the first thing. And one of the biggest mistakes people do is just to come in, blindly apply to jobs, and just go on and on, applying to jobs with the same CV, with the same cover letter, with the same sort of mindset. And I think that's the problem number one there. The first thing is not applying for jobs. The first thing is sitting down, taking a step back, understanding your cultural nuances of the city where you're applying, because a lot of people just seem to think that job hunting is instinctive. And it's a simple process that you're going to come in a new country, come in and just start applying, and you'll start getting jobs. But what's important is, and that's where most people go wrong, is you need to take a step back and put in place a job hunting strategy. I cannot emphasize the amount of importance that a good job hunting strategy can have on any candidate, be it experienced, be it, a junior level candidate. You need a battle plan before you even start applying. There are multiple reasons to that. One, it'll help you gather data. Two, it'll help you review that data and change the battle plan if it's not working. And it'll ensure that you're not basically making the same mistake over and over again. Now, if I were to talk about what all goes in that battle plan, I'd say you just need to, if you're doing something right now, if you're just starting a job hunt, a good action item to start with in terms of building that battle plan would be taking a step back, stop applying, maybe for a day. And I promise you it's going to be worth it. And figure out 5 questions, right? Figure out these answers. What are you going to be applying for? What are your areas of priority where you're best suited to apply for? How are you going to be applying for it? So what are your channels of disseminations? Are you going to be using agencies, cold emails, referrals, direct applications, LinkedIn? What are you going to do, right? So what are you going to apply for? How are you going to do it? How much are you going to apply? So having weekly targets, super important. Give yourself weekly targets, stick to it, and commit to it. And the other bit is how you're going to track your applications. The fifth one is how we're going to customize it. Now, the strategy is very important, and figuring these 5 questions out is a starting point to that. And so I'd say that's the first mistake, right? We think we're going to apply without a strategy and just go on. That's not how it works. We need a strategy before we start applying. And the answer to those 5 questions is a good starting point. I think the second and two other quick points that really come to mind is a lot of people come in the UK and they think like, all right, I've got no network, so I should just start randomly texting people on LinkedIn and asking them to give me a referral. And that's where the cultural nuance comes in, right? Probably where I come from, originally I'm from New Delhi, India, and you can cold email people and you may get a response. Things work slightly differently in the UK, where if you're referring someone, it is actually your own professional reputation that you're putting out on stake, because if it's a bad hire, it shows bad in your name. So essentially, people love to hire those people who they know about. And so in the UK, for instance, a lot of people spend a lot of their time just spamming people and trying to get a referral. Most likely, they have a 99% failure rate on that. And so what works better is, building a relationship, building a genuine relationship. And there are tips and tricks around how you do that without, being too clingy or being like, too interfering. And so that's the other problem that most people, sort of just jump into and think they'll get a referral, but it doesn't work and waste their time. And the job seeker's time is super precious. That's the only currency we deal with. I think the third one, and this is slightly contentious, is attending networking events back to back. So networking events in the UK are very interesting, especially these job hunting fairs and all that, because a lot of my clients, and this is like super personal, it's not ubiquitous advice, but a lot of things that I've seen in my clients, they go to the networking events and they go to employment fairs and stuff. It's a good one if you go for like 1 or 2 of these, just as a starting point. But what ends up happening is the people you're going to meet there are also the ones looking for a job. Essentially, that's not the best investment of your time again. So, and that's a pitfall. What do you do instead? You try attending industry conferences. For instance, if you're a chemical engineer, go to the Hydrogen Summit in the UK, in London, right? That's where you'll find industry people who are out there talking and who are the ones that are actually going to give you a job. So it's just light paradigm shifts on all of these 3 points, right? Applying without a strategy, asking for referrals without a relationship, and going to networking events without a plan or really what you want out of it. I think these are a couple of the biggest sort of time wasters that I've seen for a lot of internationals coming into the UK and just trying to get started. I know that's quite a detailed answer, Tegan. Apologies for that, but I just go on with
No, you just dropped so many gems, and people are going to have to go back and watch it on replay and press pause and take good notes, because what you just shared, could really be a masterclass in job searching 101. So Asher, welcome to the conversation. For all of those of you who are tuning in, be sure to put where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions, make sure you drop them in the chat, or if you're on a confidential search, go ahead and DM us and we will happily respond. We will do our best to multitask while also keeping the conversation going. But yeah, I'm in total agreement with you. Clarity is always the number one step. If you don't know, if you're trying to cast a wide net, you're not going to really be attractive to someone. And so figuring out what it is you want to do, and then thinking with the end in mind, right? Like what job do I want? And then creating a roadmap on how to get there, creating those metrics to hold your success accountable, and then beginning to execute. I love that tip. And attending networking conferences, huge. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay, so now I want to zoom in on 2025 specifically. The US is a little bit of a cluster right now with so many changes to federal legislation. A lot of companies are on edge because they're not really sure what's going to happen. And anytime there's uncertainty, hiring stalls a little bit. Unemployment rates are relatively high. It's a relatively flat hiring market, meaning companies aren't doing absorbent amounts of hiring like they were just 2 years ago. And so that's what's happening in the US right now. You have to show up and compete, be polished, be on top of your game, not just like a laissez-faire, casual, this is going to be good enough type of thing, to really land a job, especially if you don't have an insider supporting you. So tell me, UK job market 2025, what the heck is happening and why are so many people so confused as to what's going on?
I absolutely love that question because we get asked this a lot of times on Instagram across different platforms. And I'd say it's quite a difficult spot to be on. I don't say it out of my own, observation, which is aligned to what the sort of the reality of things is. But Office of National Statistics just released data, I think 2 months ago, and the data essentially suggested that the number of open vacancies in the UK, and this is also Indeed data, the number of open vacancies in the UK have dropped to the lowest since 2020. And now that's a macro level indicator, but it does give you some insight in terms of where the market is at. And a lot of things have contributed to that. I think the biggest contributor has been sort of, coming in of AI and, just a lot of jobs getting automated, a couple of jobs going out. And so when you look at it from a macro level perspective, definitely there's a lot of disturbance in the job market. It's at its lowest. That's one. And with the September coming in, we're expecting a surge in September. So it's going to be like, something interesting to watch out for, how the hiring practices change. I think the other bit is also around a little bit of uncertainty in terms of just regulations, especially for international students. I think it's just with the new government coming in, dynamics change, which is quite natural. And I think one of the things that's key is sort of the government recently released its immigration white paper, for instance. And that's led a lot of, my clients and my students be like, okay, what's going to happen? So there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think that's also reflected from employers' side where, they're slightly hesitant to hire international candidates, which is quite natural as a result of policy. And now sort of having said that, the market is quite difficult especially for international candidates, especially locally as well. Lowest number of vacancies, lots of policy changes. And I think the third bit is people have imperfect knowledge. You not believe the number of people who come in and say, Vardaan, I am only going to do a one-page CV because that's how it's supposed to be done. I'm like, great, but who defined those rules, right? Where is that rule written? I always tell people the best CV is the one that gets you converted.
Hallelujah.
I've got clients in my CV, in my club, Tegan, you wouldn't believe they've got flowers in their CV. They say, what I want to do, they want to test it because I'm a designer. I want to show my design skills in my CV, and that's how I want to express myself. Give me 100 application if it doesn't work your way. And I'm like, absolutely, go for it. That lady has conversion rate of about 7% on her CV, which is one of the highest. And she's already gotten 2 jobs with a flower in her CV. Now that by no means is a standard career coach advice. We don't give that advice because that's not a best practice. But even that works in some cases. And so the logic
you gotta
there,
figure out a way to stand out.
Exactly. And so I think the logic there is, you need to listen to what the market is saying and execute that instead of being stuck up with what the internet's telling you. So you need to have that level of flexibility. So I think if you ask me, overall market, difficult, lots of changes, and the imperfect knowledge and the assumptions on the internet without having some credible advice adds on to that and makes it a very difficult spot to be in.
All right. So then put on your coaching hat. What are like 2 to 3 things that you wish every job seeker who's looking to land in the UK would stop doing? And then what should they be doing instead? Getting like real tangible, somebody can walk away and feel like they're going to get traction, like juicy tips.
Absolutely. I think the first one, a lot of international, if that's the focus area. I mean, we come in and, so I'll give you my story, right? So the way I came to the UK, my parents wanted to take a huge loan. They wanted to take like a 50K loan to send me to the UK. Thankfully, that didn't happen because I applied to like 2,000 jobs before coming and got one of the jobs. And so didn't have to take the money. But a lot of my clients, a lot of my relatives, family members, what they've done is they've taken like a 50 grand loan. They've come to the UK hoping for like a 2-year work permit, which they get on. And essentially what happens is because of bad job seeking sort of advice, they waste easily the 6 to 12 month mark. And now because of that, they just have 1 year left on their graduate rupees. And so the situation becomes really tricky.
Yeah.
And so the number one thing that I would say, ask people to really, really stop doing is doing it by yourself. And I know it sounds really, really off sometimes, but so apply the rule of 2. I always tell this to people. I don't ask them to take help directly because most of the people get jobs, right? The rule of 2 is very simple. If you've got a CV that has a conversion rate of less than 2% consistently for, a 2-month time period, then you need to fix it.
Yep.
And so if you've got a CV with a conversion rate of less than 2% for 2 months, there is something wrong. Either fix it by yourself or change it, right? So the one thing I would say is stop doing it by yourself. And if you're doing it by yourself, hold yourself to account and give yourself that level of flexibility to change things. That's number one, definitely. I think the other bit is a lot of people, what I've seen, they do is they come in, put a CV together, apply to like 20 jobs and get rejections because, of course, that's how the market is. The market's about, as much as it's about quality, it's also about volume, especially if you're an international again. So, having said that, I think one of the things that people really should stop doing is again and again changing their CV without having adequate data on it. What that means is, again, going back to the example I cited before this, if you've got a CV, you've put it out in the market and you've not collected enough data on it, and you're taking a decision on that CV, that's probably not the right decision. So you need to have enough data for you to then make changes in your CV. And so to people who just come in, apply 10 jobs, get rejected, change the CV, apply to another 10, get rejected, change the CV. If you're changing a CV again and again, you're never going to have enough data to be able to substantively review that CV. So I think
that kind of brings you to like what you were talking about in the beginning with those 5 questions. If you do the market research, when you do go to write your CV, then once you have clarity on what it is you want to do next, you can use that market intel to position yourself more strongly for the market that we're in, and then test it and iterate once the market has spoken.
Exactly. And so I think, I think it's important to like not take advice from everywhere and just execute all the advice that you see on the internet. I think the imperfect knowledge bit is a very, very big problem personally to me. And I see it with a lot of my clients. You need to stick to it, you need to commit to it, and you need to deliver it till the end, where you can confidently come to me and say, and there's a question for everyone watching, right? If I were to ask you, how many applications have you made with your current CV over the last 2 months? If you don't have an exact number to give me, that's part of the problem. If you have an exact number to give me, then my next question to you will be, how much of that have you converted into interviews or screening calls? If you don't have a number for that, that's another problem. So we need to fix that. If your conversion is over 2%, then you need to continue doing what you're doing and just amp it up in terms of volume and just get more interviews and crack one of them, right? But most people don't have this data to start with, and that's one of the biggest problems. The second big problem is the ATS. Now, there's a lot of misinformation around ATS. Personally, I've worked with about 16 different ATS systems. There are way more ATS systems in the UK now. I think it runs into a couple of hundreds or something like that. A lot of people come in and they obsess over having an ATS-friendly CV. And I think there is a point where you need to stop obsessing over an ATS-friendly CV. An ATS-friendly CV essentially just has 4 things, right? Need not have any graphics, need to flow smoothly in a straight line, no symbols, and essentially get all the keywords in there. As someone who's worked with multiple ATS systems, People HR, Oracle, you name it, Workday, LinkedIn ATS as well. One thing that we've seen is that it's just these 4 principles, right? As far as you've gotten that right, I don't think.
And they've gotten so much better in just the past 2 years with all the AI, like having shading, bolding, like text boxes, no, because then it's embedded within something different instead of on the document itself. But even if you want to put like the flower story you shared, you want to put a symbol on there, then put a symbol on there. It's not gonna hurt it. If anything, it's a digital filing cabinet, and the human being behind the scenes is going to take a look at it, and either it's a go or not. And when you're applying online, when you're applying to the ATS, you don't know how far along they are in the process, and so that's part of it. Did they already have somebody in mind? Did they already interview people before the role was even posted? So there's so much out of your control when you're applying online, but the ATS doesn't have to be scary. So we're on the same page there. Do not fear the ATS. Love that tip.
Absolutely. And I think there's a need to go beyond the ATS where, please the machine, great. But you need to, at the end of the day, please the human being who's going to be reading it. So it needs to have all of what, one of the simplest things. I ask people to add simple, solid colors on their CV. Not like something really to the eye, but, simple, like a solid dark shade of blue.
Yeah.
It increases the visual appeal on your CV. It makes it easy to read, makes it stand out. And I think it's those simple things that people have somewhat lost throughout this ATS sort of, fiasco.
I agree. All right. So we are coming up close to time. So one of the things that I see a lot with my clients, and mind you, we kind of work with different audience. I primarily work with experience rich or executive level, more senior level job seekers, who are going to primarily land their next job through their reputation and their visibility of that reputation. Like, who is going to find you and who is going to believe that you can provide value. Less high volume roles, and you work with more of the mid-career or maybe even early career, sometimes more senior career. And so sometimes things are a little bit different. But one thing that is going to be consistent is I'm trying to think of a different word for mindset, but nothing's coming to mind right now. But like our emotional energy, like how we show up, the things we tell ourselves. And so with your membership, how do you kind of coach your clients through when they're feeling stuck or frustrated or burnt out? Because a 2% acceptance rate, and that's good. That's a lot of freaking rejection. That's a lot of just not hearing anything. So I want to wrap my mind around that.
Absolutely. And I think that's a brilliant question, right? Because part of job hunting is really being resilient. I myself have done it, and I've seen a lot of people do it. And I think the people who do get a job, especially a visa-sponsored job, are a couple of the most resilient people that I've ever worked with. Now, I mean, we do a lot of things in our sort of membership. I think one of the biggest things, and it may sound a little bit cheesy, is actually the power of our community. I mean, you come in, and the day you come in, you're going to have people around you who are going to be like super supportive. I think just having that sense of community and just being in the shared space. I'll give you an example, right? So we do two things, which I really like in the community, right? The first thing is we do an application day where all of us come together. And the goal is over the next 2 hours, we're going to apply for jobs together. We put in nice music, get some nice coffee. A process as dreading as frustrating as a job hunt and putting application becomes a joyful process because I'm sharing my stories. People are talking about things and, we're just applying. Everyone's got their own targets. And so that process, when you've got people involved, the pounds, and so we've got these systems and processes in place, which really help in terms of, just having more people around you in the same sort of shared space. I think that really does help. The second thing is really having a structure helps. And I cannot emphasize how important that is. I think one of the things that I was saying is basically, how structure replaces fear. And I cannot agree more to that. It's primarily, if you've got a tracker, if you've got a strategy, if you've answered those 5 questions that I raised before this session, like right at the front, if you've got all of that written down, I've got like one of the strategy templates here as well. If you've got all of that written down, piece by piece, if you've mapped it out and you're tracking your jobs every day and you've got a weekly target, I think that structure really pushes you to do more. And the last thing that I always constantly tell people is volume negates luck. And part of job hunting, as much as people want to disagree with that, comes down to being at the right place, from the right people, at the right time, with the right qualifications and skills. Now, qualifications and skills is something you can manage with your education, your CV. But at the right place, the right time, from the right people is not very manageable sometimes. It's not in your control, and that's the frank reality of it. And so how do you deal with that? And the simple thing is, yes, part of it is luck, but volume negates luck. And not a lot of people understand this in the job hunt. I've seen people spend 3 days on a single job application, only to be rejected 3 hours after submitting, So really having that volume mindset does help.
When someone rewrites their resume 100 times before they even start their job search, and then it's been 3 months of just saying like, it's not perfect, and you're not going to know how the market reacts until you test it. And so put something out there, or to your point, now job searches are going from 6 months to 12 months. And it doesn't have to be that way. I love that you have the group setting. I think it's so powerful. In my Perfect Fit Accelerator program, we meet every Sunday as a way to talk about what we want to do differently in the next week, and come up with our goals. So there is that accountability, there is that structure, there is that dedication, because it's so easy to get stuck in doom scrolling and you think you're making progress, but you can't measure what you don't track. And so how many connection requests did you send? And before you sent a connection request, did you research that person? Did you engage with that person? Did you try to get an introduction to that person? Or are you just spamming people with desperation, which really doesn't work in the UK market based on what you're saying is so many people bombard people, they just turn off. So how do you separate yourself? So man, we have unpacked so much. And I know that there is so much that we could really go into. But just for our viewers, tell them a little bit more about how they can get in touch with you if somebody wants to join the UK Jobs Insider membership. Who's it for? What do members get? Because I know that there's a lot of people out here getting help. That's why I brought you on to have this conversation, because of how many people DM me. And I live in Chicago, so I'm so far from it. And so I know that people my connection was lost. Sorry about that. So I have no idea what viewers just saw, or where you heard me leave off. But what I was saying is, I know that people need support. And so tell people the UK Job Insider membership, who's it for and what do members get?
Absolutely. I think it's for anyone looking for a job, honestly, because we've got 2 tiers of membership.
Okay.
Our Done For You membership, which is a plus membership, is where it's usually for professionals who are already in a job, or people who've got a limited time, or people who just want to, speeding things up.
Yeah.
Same as you, what we do for the UK is we write your CV, we write your cover letter, we write you a job hunting strategy, which was exactly what I was talking about a while ago, the 5 questions. My team does that for you. And then we sit down together and, sort of brainstorm it with you. It's more of like a one-on-one support where I sit down with you, brainstorm the strategy, brainstorm the CV we have worked. We meet every week and we make sure you get a job within 3 months.
Awesome.
The cool thing with that membership, if you don't get a job within 3 months, you can stay in our standard membership for as long as you want till you get a job. Okay. So and that's how confident we are, because you not believe, Tegan, this month's been like really crazy. We've got like 14 job offers. So, and that's why we're really, really confident about what we're delivering. So that's the plus membership. A standard membership is a lot more social and a lot more sort of lively. So our standard membership works on an asynchronous feedback loop learning mechanism, which is basically, I'm going to give you a lot of my masterclasses. So we're going to start the CV masterclass. We're going to get your CV fixed. You're going to come meet me in a live session. We're going to discuss your CV on screen, pop it on screen, discuss it, give you feedback, and do this until the CV is done. We're going to do the same with the strategy, and then we're going to execute it till you get a job. And then, so we do like about 6-7 sessions a week, which is a lot. I know it's almost crazy. People think I don't have a life. But we're just at it all the time. Like right after, we've got a session as well, I think. And so, the standard membership runs like that. In terms of level of seniority, we've got community peer mentors across levels of seniority. So we do host people across industries. We've got neuroscientists and microbiologists, all the way to people like me who do public policy, and we deliver for everyone. We've gotten super technical offers. We've gotten offers in business. And so in that sense, we're like open to everyone as far as it's the UK.
That is amazing. I'm going to make sure that this link going across is also in the event comments, as well as if you're on my subscriber list, you will get a recap of everything we talked about here. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I'm about to have a gymnastics team run into my house because I accidentally signed up for carpooling on Friday. If any of the moms are listening, I am not saying that resentfully. I love being able to support other working moms. But on that note, I will see you all next time. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks so much.